There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You made it through another week. This is the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
A lot of stuff going on in the week.
Yes, there is. Yes.
A lot of weird stories.
Mm-hmm. New
discoveries, strange sightings, ghostly encounters, and that's just what's happened to me this morning. No, but I digress. Let's get into it. Where are we going to start off this week's adventure, Tim?
Sabu was a guy who was in ECW, but I think Sabu. We'll call it Sabu. How does that sound?
Let's go with that.
All right. Sabu. Schoolgirls have fallen victim, Dave, to demonic possession after seeing ghosts. That's the headline.
So you see a ghost, it turns into demonic possession. All right, I'm on board. Let's see where this goes.
I think this is from the Philippines, Dave, to be honest with you. A school in Danao City, Cebu, has reported an outbreak of supposed demonic possession sparked by the sighting of a ghost. At least 13 female high school students were reportedly gripped by an evil spirit yesterday. Well, actually, Thursday, to be exact. According to a report in the Cebu Daily News, Provincial Health Officer Dr. Rene Catan confirmed the report. He said the students affected were in grade 8 and 9, aged 15 to 16, at Ubaldo Away Memorial National High School in Barangay Cambane. Cambane. I want to get that right, Dave. I strive. I'm a journalist, you know. He added that the outbreak of mass hysteria started after the students claimed to see a black figure in the school grounds. The outbreak was the second on the island this week, with the Philippine Star reporting that 14 high school students were possessed in the Dalagete town on Monday. The affected children were grade 7 students, aged 13 to 14, in Dumalan National High School. Teacher in charge, Flora Roscoe, said classes were suspended and the possessed students were sent home following the outbreak between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. She added that 3 of the students became violent. You're saying it's right after breakfast, that it's probably Captain Crunch?
No, I'm wondering if this was a test day. Hey, act like we're all possessed. They'll send us home for the day.
Oh, you're thinking it's a little bit of the test flu.
I would call it shenanigans, Tim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're
riding the shenanigan wagon.
The shenanigan wagon?
Yes.
So you're just assuming the worst out of children, Dave.
Yes.
You're not thinking they're the innocent little pixies that they portray themselves to be.
No.
I see.
I'm the father of 42 children, Tim.
Oh, all right.
And I know this to be true, that they're full of poop and shenanigans.
Okay. All right.
Sometimes a bit of skullduggery and chicanery thrown in for the mix.
All right. She added that 3 of the students became violent, while the others reported abdominal pains and breathing difficulties. Some of the youngsters claimed to have seen paranormal beings, but could not remember what happened when they returned to their senses. While in the grip of possession, some of the students were reported to murmur about the planting of certain types of native trees. That's a new one, Dave. All of a sudden, it became Arbor Day when they became possessed.
This year, Arbor Day will never be the same. From the producers of Beyond the Darkness and Darkness Radio and True Crime Tuesday, the gentlemen that have brought you your scares and wares for years, it's Arbor Day. The spirits of trees are talking. You better listen. What do you think?
That sounds frightening.
Yeah. This time, when a tree falls in the woods, everyone hears, you scream,
No! No! I'm gassy and I saw a tree spirit.
You never watered me.
That'd be it. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I think that's all we got.
Yeah.
Huh. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right. While the teacher did not rule out the possibility of demonic possession, she said the incident could have been triggered by hunger. That'll do it. Yeah. She described how some students had to get up for school at 4 a.m. before walking long distances on empty stomachs. Could have been uphill both ways as well, Dave. That's not official, but I'm just saying. The local education authority has announced that an early morning feeding program will be introduced to tackle the issue of so-called demons. As well as this, a pastor is being sent to the school to perform a blessing, and morning prayers have been introduced, hopefully over breakfast.
Yeah, turns out it's Sonny the Cuckoo Bird, who is their local exorcist, Tim.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
He does go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Last month, we reported how 2 Cebu schools were forced to close after outbreaks of mass hysteria among pupils struck within hours of one another. The phenomenon was reported at Ronda National High School early on Friday, June 22nd, when 20 students became hysterical. The grade 9 and 10 students told teachers that they had seen the ghost of a child in the school. Police officers were sent to the school, and the affected children were taken to a local church. Then just hours later, 19 pupils of Colwyn National High School in Argao Town, Dave, also succumbed to a similar outbreak. The Argao Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office deployed a team to the school at about 1 p.m. to respond to the situation. Some of the affected students were sent to Isidro Quintara Memorial Hospital, while others were taken to a nearby church. According to a report on DY-AB Teleradio Cebu, school officials said the outbreak of hysterical behavior was somehow related to a decision to replace an axed mango tree. Oh, that'll do it every time, Dave. I don't know if you know how close people in the Philippines are to axed mango trees, but there's a synergy there.
It all began when George Washington chopped down the cherry tree. Now, no tree is safe, not even mango. That's what we focus on in the movie Arbor Day.
People love the mango, Dave.
Yeah.
While unusual, such outbreaks of mass hysteria have been seen before in the Philippines. In February, it was reported that a school in Palawan was forced to cancel lessons after 15 students who were supposedly possessed by evil spirits. According to a report on GMA News, the affected students were rushed to a Catholic church after the supernatural outbreak. The school's principal, Vin Diesel?
Yes,
Vin Diesel Tamanyao, a different Vin Diesel than you know, told the broadcaster that the incident occurred after 2 students claimed to see the spirit of a woman covered in blood. According to eyewitnesses, the possessed students were heard to speak a strange language and were said to display freakish strength. The affected youngsters were taken to a nearby church for prayers before being sent home. So there you go.
I think, I don't know how prevalent social media is, but could there have been some kind of, covert shenanigans between schools? Or like, hey, you know what I heard? My brother and his friends got out of school last year by pretending to see a ghost and claiming they were possessed. I think we could pull that off. It's getting close to Senior Ditch Day. Let's make this happen. And then they start sharing it on social media, Tim. And the next thing you know, it's shenanigans in the school.
Senior Ditch Day, you say?
Didn't you have one of those?
Well, we had Senior Skip Day, but not a ditch day. That would mean we got to throw seniors in a ditch, and we would have enjoyed that.
No. It means you ditched school for the day.
Oh.
You Minnesotans take things way too literally.
Well, we do.
All right. Where shall we go next, sir?
Well, Dave, a clown doll allegedly possessed by a dead child appears to move on its own in a museum, absolutely freaking out all of America.
Well, I don't know. Hold on. Nope. I'm definitely not freaked out. So
I'm not.
Obviously not all of America.
Dolls don't do it for me. I don't know. People just go, oh, it's a doll.
That's not true. I know 2 inflatable dolls that are still trying to get themselves clean because you do let them do it for you.
I took advantage of everything I could. Actually, I have to tell you a story, Dave, just real quick. I went to my foot doctor 2 weeks ago, and he tells me that he refused to buy a house. Called off the sale. He was absolutely in love with this entire house, was about to buy the house when he saw up in a China hutch, he saw this old doll that was left there for staging, and it freaked him out so bad that he called off the sale.
Really?
Yeah. And I said,
ninny.
I know. That's what I said. No, I didn't say that. But I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah. He said, it had this look. It had these, it had almost blackish eyes. He said they weren't completely black, but he said the paleness of the doll, the dark stare in the almost blackish eyes made him just go, nope, not doing it. And he called off the sale. Expensive home too, I guess. So, yeah, there you go.
It's a little goofy.
No. I get. I get why
it's a little goofy.
I get why.
I'm pretty sure. Wait, no, it's goofy, Tim. I've just taken a poll right here. It's goofy.
What? A lot of people write to me and say how they're freaked out by dolls. It just doesn't do it for me, though. I'm just not. It's not one. To me, it's not rational. It just isn't.
Yeah. All right. So your podiatrist called off the buying of a house because they had a doll on a shelf that would be taken out of there because it was just there for staging, and he couldn't tolerate owning the house. And you're trusting this man with the future of your foot.
He's actually saved my foot. I'd be walking around on a stump right now if it weren't for him. Yeah, he's very talented. He's a very excellent doctor. I wouldn't go to anybody else, but I know if I brought a doll in tomorrow, he wouldn't treat me.
Very Rain Man of you. That's definitely an excellent doctor.
Yeah, but if I brought a doll in tomorrow, I'd lose him. Yep. Just saying.
Well, if he ever starts pissing you off and wants to collect on the money that you owe him for all that work, just start sending him doll parts.
This could be you. No, I'm kidding. No, okay. All right, let me get back to this next story about a clown doll. It's a clown doll allegedly possessed by a dead child appears to move on its own at a museum. This is the moment a possessed clown doll appears to move on its own, allegedly haunted by the spirit of a dead child who doesn't like the toy to be moved. The musical clown, known as Bob. Oh yeah, Bob the musical clown is a very scary name.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Bob, the musical clown.
Yep, look at me running on one foot. Is kept at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Center in Hinckley, Leicester, believed to be the first museum of its kind in the UK. Bought in a box of old antiques, team member Sam Littlejohns claims it was a medium who was able to first connect with Bob and discover his past, who is a renowned character. 40-year-old Sam says the doll's music often starts playing on its own, and it is said that the boy attached to the clown does not like his toy being moved, so will often move it back himself. Eerie CCTV footage shows the clown visibly lurch forwards during a paranormal investigation last month, which the team believes could have been Bob moving the doll back into place himself. 46-year-old Jason Wall was the investigator nearest the clown when it moved, and has struggled to explain how it could have happened. Jason from Sutton and Ashfield Knots said, "We had a table with 3 dolls on there, and one of them was this clown. It's been said that if you move the doll, that it will move back to the position that it wants. One of the people at the investigation picked it up, and when she put it back, she turned it around 90 degrees to see if it would, or if it could prompt a response. In the middle of the table, we had a device that measures temperature and environmental conditions and also lights up if there's any type of vibration. The lights lit up a few times when we were waiting for responses to questions. I went back to the table to check that it wasn't our movement on the floorboards that had caused the device to light it up. You can see me moving up and down to see if it got a reaction from the device, but nothing happened. But as I went to turn around, the doll caught my eye, and it was as if something had twisted it at an angle slightly. If that had been because of my movement, then it would have fallen over as it was not on a stand. It was just standing on its own 2 feet. It was a defined movement, and it stopped me in my tracks. But when I looked, it was as if it had been caught moving. So then I rushed into the other room to tell the others what I had just seen, which you can see me do in the video. We all went and looked at the CCTV coverage, but unfortunately the back of my head obscures the movement I saw. But as I walked away, you can see a second movement, which I didn't even know had happened. It was completely by accident that we caught the second movement. The movement caught on the video is different to the first one that I saw. I thought I saw a deliberate twist, whereas this one we have captured is much quicker. Despite the footage showing the clown distinctly moving on its own with no one touching it, Jason remains open-minded on what the explanations could be. Jason, who was with his Haunted Live group investigating the doll, said, "It's a strange thing, really. We can't really describe what it was. That's why we've put it out there for people to look at. I'm not a believer, but I'm not a disbeliever. I tend to believe my own eyes. I'm not someone who jumps to say it is paranormal straight away. That's not my belief. I tend to look at things logically, which is why I was looking at the clown in the first place, to check it was not something that we were doing that caused it, which it wasn't. It's almost as if I'd caught them out. As soon as I realized and looked directly at the clown, it stopped moving and it didn't rock. It was still in position. It's like something was moving it slowly and deliberately back into place because it didn't like where it had been left. But as soon as I saw it moving, it stopped. I can't say it's paranormal because I can't prove anything like that. I would never say something was paranormal without complete and utter evidence. The fact we got something that I didn't see backs up what I saw and backs up the previous stories about the doll being moved and put back in place again. Whenever we get something on camera like this that someone says is evidence for paranormal activity, some people take it with a pinch of salt, and from some there can be a backlash. For me, it's just vindication that what I saw happen again straight afterwards. Sam from Leicester is a part of the team of 8 who run the Paranormal Center, and she claims that there is now so much activity the members cannot enter on their own. Sam said you will hear Bob's music playing, and it's quite unnerving. It's circus music, you know. No one will be there, and you will hear the chimes play. He is quite a character. I wasn't surprised by the footage because that particular week we had groups in every single night, so the energy in the building was quite high. It was really active paranormal-wise. Lots of people had reported things, so when Jason said he thought the clown moved, I was not surprised and said we could look at it on CCTV. Jason gets very freaked when he stays at the center. I do get unsettled, too, when I'm there. As a team, we don't go on our own anymore. We have to go in pairs. Ben Canham is another volunteer at the center and feels sorry for Bob, who is believed to have had a tormented life before he died and became supposedly attached to the clown. Ben said Bob is a musical clown, and one time when I was there, he started playing on his own, and when no one even touched him or was in the room with him. Bob has a sad story, bless him. He was bullied and was rejected by his family, and it is believed that is why he became attached to the doll in the afterlife. There you go.
All right. So the doll may or may not have moved. He may or may not be attached to the doll. So it's really kind of a up-in-the-air story overall.
A little bit.
All right. Where are we off to next?
Another paranormal investigation, Dave. A paranormal investigator tells of a ghost haunting in a Derbyshire or Shire pub. They tell me
Derbyshire.
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 A paranormal investigator who has been visiting some of Derbyshire's most haunted locations has spoken about his experience at a Belper pub. Simon Dean, who is also a wrestler, had his own exercise system in WWE, runs Derby Paranormal Investigations, went to the George and Dragon pub in Bridge Street and Belper to find out what went on after last orders. I believe that's the last call over here, Dave. They talk funny over there. Just the George.
I've never made it to last call.
You never made it to last call?
No, that's much too late for me.
Look at you, playa.
That's not true. You know we've closed down many a bar.
Well, yeah.
I was just trying to sound like a much more prim and proper man.
Oh, I see. The George and Dragon pub has been one of the oldest and finest public houses in Belper for more than 200 years. Craig, the landlord, was very friendly. This is written from the the journalist perspective. It says, when I visited, I've never been there, and opened up about stories of the paranormal in the pub. Craig's other half, Rebecca, once rang a medium regarding visiting the George to hold a group reading at the pub. The medium said, in the bar entrance to your right is a corner where a door once was, which is now blocked up. In the area where the door was is a bench seating area. There are jolly and mischievous spirits there. I will not visit, as there are other spirits deeper in that place. You don't want them coming through. Another experience happened in one of the upstairs bathrooms. While Rebecca was in the bathroom, the lock on the door started to rattle. Startled but not scared, she opened the door to see who was there, and nobody was around. She closed and locked the door again. This time the lock started to rattle and then started to be pulled back, but again, when she opened the door, the corridor was empty. There are also stories of a lady that hanged herself in one of the upstairs areas.
Do you think it's an impatient ghost with diarrhea?
It could be, yeah.
Are you done in there? Oh, my God, are you done in there?
Her spirit... That would be the worst afterlife ever.
I'm sure that's coming my way. There's no worse feeling than when you race to the bathroom and there's somebody in there, and you can hear them on their phone dinking around. And you're like, I got work to do. I got trouble bussing in from out of state, and I got to get that relief. Open the door.
Bussing in from out of state.
You got to try to find nice ways to say it when you're out at restaurants.
Yeah,
Where are you going? I've got some trouble bussing in from out of state. Oh, I got you. All right.
Her spirit has apparently been there ever since. Oh, that poor lady. Oh. The presence of a small child has also been felt in and around the bar area, begging for drinks, probably. One day, while Craig was in the bar alone, he noticed a white dot of light moving around the bar. He watched this dot until he exited via the pub entrance. The next day, his cat was knocked down by a car and sadly died. Oh. I recommend, this is the author, recommends you pay the place a visit if you're ever in the area. Derby Paranormal Investigations is not affiliated with Derby Paranormal Investigators. Evidently, there's a civil war there, Dave, and we don't dare get involved. And there you go. That's the article.
All right, Tim, where are we off to next?
Well, Dave, it turns out that UFOs do have vacation destinations, and New York may be among the top spots.
Start spreading the news. That's what you're doing right now. You're spreading the news.
That's what I'm doing.
So UFOs, the hot spot, you say, may be New York.
It may be. That's their visiting. That's where they visit, Dave. That's where they like to pop in. That's where they like to say, hey, that's where they like to just show their face.
What information do we have to back that scenario up?
Well, there's something out there, and it's checking us out. According to a new report, 5,141 UFOs were spotted in the skies over New York between 2001 and 2015. That's putting the state in 6th place in the country for the number of possible visits from space aliens. According to the financial news and opinion site 24/7 Wall Street, that's 26 sightings for every 100,000 people. That's quite a bit. Here are the top 10 places in the country for UFO sightings per 100,000 people. Number 1 is Vermont, Dave. Evidently, it's beautiful there.
Vermont, you say?
Yeah, Vermont.
Huh.
Number 2 is Oregon. Number 3 is Washington. Number 4 is Maine. Number 5 is New Hampshire. Evidently, New England is nice this time of year. Who knew?
Well, of course, Tim.
Yeah.
It's where all the discerning aliens want to visit.
I guess. Number 6 is Arizona. Number 7 is New Mexico. Number 8 is Alaska. Number 9 is Montana. And number 10 is Idaho. In the book,
you know what?
I'm not saying that again. I'm not falling into that trap. In the book UFO Sightings Desk Reference, which I have one on my desk right now, authors Cheryl Costa and Linda Miller Costa compiled reports from 2 government databases to highlight how sightings vary over time between states. 24/7 Wall Street reviewed the number of sightings to determine which states have the most per capita. Sightings apparently depend heavily on the weather, Dave, believe it or not. The sightings are about when observers are available to be outside in nice weather and whether they have leisure time, Costa told the authors. In the north, which typically sees colder winters, there are significantly more reported sightings over the summer as residents spend more time outside. The most commonly reported UFO sightings at 13% appears as a mysterious light. Others include discs, spheres, cigar shapes, flashes, and formations. As intriguing as these are, don't expect to see what one New Mexico police officer described in 1964. It would later be called the best documented case on record by an investigator with the U.S. Air Force's famous UFO investigation program, Project Blue Book, according to the CIA. Socorro patrolman Lonnie Zamora was chasing a speeding vehicle when he heard a loud roar and saw flames near the area of a dynamite shack, rather. It was dynamic, too. I don't know if you've ever seen it. He abandoned the chase and drove through tough terrain to investigate, according to documents relating to the case. At one point, he came upon an object roughly the size of a car about 800 feet away. There were one or two figures in white coveralls. He refused to describe them as people, and he assumed they were the occupants of the vehicle. Once he was about 150 feet away, he proceeded on foot toward a white egg-shaped object, which was standing on girder-like legs. The vehicle had red markings shaped like a crescent with a vertical arrow and a horizontal line underneath. In the days following the incident, he said the oval object turned and saw him. The object then began emitting sounds. The noise was unlike anything he'd ever heard, he said. Flames and smoke shot out of the bottom of the vehicle. It was as bluish orange flame, Zamora told radio interviewer Walter Schroed. I thought this object was going to blow up. That's why I started running back. Frightened, he rushed to get behind his police car. He bumped his leg and lost his glasses. While crouched and shielding his eyes, the noise stopped, and after another 10 seconds, it got eerily quiet. The sound disappeared, he said. It was very, very quiet, and you could hear a pin drop. Yeah. The object rose to about 15 to 20 feet off the ground. The flames and smoke stopped. The aircraft flew very low to the ground and then traveled up to a perlite mill before gaining altitude, Zamora said. It cleared the dynamite shack by maybe 3 feet. Hector Quintanilla, the last chief officer of Project Blue Book, led the Zamora investigation. His team concluded Zamora did not fabricate the story, despite an extremely thorough probe. Investigators were never able to find the object or determine where it came from. The case remains unsolved. There you
go. All right. Unsolved Mysteries with Dave and Tim. Right after this movie, Arbor Day. All right, where are we off to next?
Arbor Day. Chilling. It's a chilling movie.
That's right.
Cousteau family members are going to investigate Nova Scotia's Shag Harbor UFO incident. Oh, yeah, baby. The sexiest UFO incident on record.
The Jacques Cousteau's family. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
What a great way to bring family into the new generation than having the Cousteaus investigate a possible UFO crash.
Have you seen any of their TV shows, by the way? The Cousteau family?
I haven't. Are they pretty good?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're very much.
What are they on? Are they on like the Oxygen Network or the Diving Channel? I don't.
There's no diving channel.
Is there a diving channel?
No, there've been some on Discovery, and yeah, they've shown quite a few of their specials on Discovery and other channels. It's quite interesting. They've gone diving in the ocean, and they've done some other things outside of the ocean as well. But yeah, it's Celine and Fabian are the two grandchildren of Jacques Cousteau, and they're the ones
That's pretty cool. What a good idea to kind of keep that legacy alive and move forward.
Yeah, they're very interesting. I don't want to call them kids, but they're younger than I am. But there you go. A nearly 51-year-old mystery will be getting a fresh set of eyes in August, and they'll belong to one of the world's most famous families in ocean exploration. Celine Cousteau and Fabien Cousteau, grandchildren of Jacques Cousteau, are set to visit Shag Harbor to investigate the infamous Shag Harbor UFO incident next month. The organization that promotes and celebrates the mystery made the announcement on their Facebook page. It was around 11 p.m. on the night of October 4th, 1967, when the first accounts of an unusual lit-up object crashing into the water of Shag Harbor, NS, first began filtering through the community. Among those who saw the string of flashing lights on that clear, moonless night were three RCMP officers, scores of fishermen.
Royal Canadian Mounted Police?
Yeah, sorry.
I'll help you with the big one.
No, I've got stuff in my throat.
Good God.
Scores of fishermen and airline... Hold on.
Welcome to professional radio broadcasting. This is class number 1. Never eat a handful of peanuts before an interview.
A lot of reading. Scores of fishermen and airline pilots flying along the province's southwest coast, but a series of searches turned up nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no clues as to what really happened that night nearly 51 years ago. A Halifax area man later uncovered a trove of government and police records that would make the Shag Harbor incident Canada's best documented and most intriguing UFO sighting. In a series of RCMP reports and correspondence sent by telex between military officials in Ottawa and Halifax, there are specific references to unidentified flying objects, and no attempts were made to explain what people were reporting. The Cousteaus will reportedly be special guests at this year's Shag Harbor UFO Conference. Lauren Wickens, the president of the Shag Harbor UFO Incident Society, says that its members are excited to have the family serve as guests. The Cousteaus are visiting as they film a documentary series. As part of their visit, the team will carry out an underwater search with David Cavett, a local diver who was one of the main divers involved in a 1967 investigation of the incident. There you go.
Hello, everyone. We are here to look for an UFO.
They don't have accents.
They don't?
No.
Well, that's kind of cheap and cheesy. They should at least fake one from it. We are now down below 400 knots, and we are approaching what could be an UFO. We'll be back after this word from our sponsor, Arbor Day, the movie. I'm just saying it would be more catchy, I think.
Oh, maybe.
All right, maybe not. Okay, go on.
Mexico earthquake has unearthed an ancient pyramid. It's about time they get some. They could put it up at the border, and that could be the wall. We wouldn't have to pay for it. See how that works, Dave? I'm just thinking. Just thinking in a way that would help everybody. Just saying. Archaeologists in Mexico have uncovered the substructure of an ancient pyramid that came to light after a devastating earthquake in September. The discovery could shed new light on the Tlahuaca civilization. You try and pronounce it, you sons of bitches. No, I'm kidding. According to experts, the foundations of the pyramid were discovered at the... Oh, you did this to me on purpose.
I always do.
Zolco, that's it. Zolco archaeological site.
Wasn't he good friends with Flash Gordon?
He was, yes.
Professor Van Zarkov?
Yes, Teopanzolco. Like there we go. Archaeological site in the state of Morelos. During restoration work to repair earthquake damage. I have to remember my Spanish from 9th grade. The city reportedly dates back to about 1200 AD, but experts believe that the new discovery of the substructure indicates a much longer occupation. Teopanzolco, is a popular site for visitors to the... Oh, God damn it. To the Hecatl, that's what it is, temple, a building dedicated to the Aztecan deity associated with the wind.
I used to dance at one of those in Aztecan. Oh, no, those were discotheques. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a discotheque, yeah.
Yeah.
A Hecatl temple. There we go. All right. The substructure of the older pyramid reportedly lies below this temple. The Tlahuican were one of the ethnic groups of the Aztec.
It might help you to read the stories an hour before the show. You can fake your way through a lot of this and just skip over the town names and everything.
I got them an hour before the show. Were one of the ethnic groups of the Aztec civilization who had migrated to current-day Morelos state during a period of great expansion of the Tenochtitlan, current-day Mexico City. A 7.1 magnitude earthquake hit central Mexico, killing 369 people on September 19th of 2017. As a result of the earthquake, the pyramid suffered considerable rearrangement of the core of its structure, said archaeologist Barbara Caneta of the National Institute of Anthropology and History. The greatest damage was at the top, where the two temples had already been discovered, one dedicated to the Mesoamerican god of sun and war, and another to Tlaloc. The floor of both shrines sank and bent, which also put their stability in danger, according to the archaeologist. When the Institute carried out studies with radar to examine the pyramid structure, they found traces of the newly discovered temple. In Ireland, the discovery of a possible archaeological feature near the UNESCO World Heritage Site close to Newgrange in County Meath has been described as a very significant find by the Department of Culture, Heritage, and the Gaeltacht. The recent heat wave has been described as vital in the discovery of a possible henge or a circular enclosure, which may be of archaeological interest at the Bruna, I believe that's Boyne site. There you go. Either way.
I just sent you 4 more
I'm not
stories.
reading it.
One is from Egypt, one is from Pakistan, one is from Israel,
So
and it's
much
all in
for
their
the,
native language.
reading
No, I
it
did
an
send you
hour
some more stories,
before.
though. I just found that I thought would be great to add.
Yeah.
But where are we off to next?
So much for reading it an hour ahead of time. Where are we headed next? Let's see. Alien breakthrough. Scientists discover a nearby planet could host life. Aliens could live on a nearby exoplanet, researchers have said, and it could be our best hope of finding life elsewhere in the universe. Scientists have identified Ross 12b, 11 light years away, as a potentially habitable planet, as it is the right temperature to hold liquid water. The planet, named so due to it orbiting the star Ross 128, is the Earth's second closest exoplanet, a planet outside of our solar system. The closest to Earth is Proxima b, which could also be habitable. Ross 128b is believed to sit in the Goldilocks zone of its host star, an area in orbit where it is not too hot or too cold, and the conditions are perfect for life. It is believed to be similar to Earth in the sense that it is a rocky planet. Diogo Souto of the Observatorio Nacional in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, said it's exciting that we can learn about another planet by determining what the light from its host star tells us about the system's chemistry. Although Ross 128b is not Earth's twin, and there is still much that we don't know about its potential geologic activity, we were able to strengthen the argument that it's a temperate planet that could potentially have liquid water on its surface. The researchers were able to determine the planet would have a suitable temperature to support life by analyzing the temperature of the host star and combining it with information on the diameter of the planet. However, there is a catch. The planet is 11 light years from Earth. 1 light year is around 5.88 trillion miles, and mathematicians have determined that with current technology, it would take approximately 191,251 years to travel that far. But it is moving towards us very slowly. Experts predict that about 79,000 years it will be closer to us than Proxima b is, which is about 4.22 light years away.
So you're saying I shouldn't pack?
No.
We're not heading off anytime soon.
No.
All right. Okay. Next story.
We go to an Albuquerque zoo. What for? I have no idea. But
you're going to love this story.
There's a strange sound coming from it. I would guess it's coming from one of the animals, but I may be wrong. People have reported a strange noise coming from the Albuquerque Zoo. That sounds like a Yeti to me, but I don't think that there are any Yetis here, one zoo-goer joked. They're right. There are not any Yetis in New Mexico. Turns out the sound is actually coming from the elephant exhibit. So next time you hear a Yeti, it probably could be an elephant. Alice, who is 45 years old, and Irene, who is 51 years old, are getting super excited and roaring because they got to spend some time with Albert, our 19-year-old bull, said, oh, God. Said elephant manager Rhonda Sayers. Albert may be...
Mom, this story's right in your wheelhouse. I knew you'd love this one.
Albert may be a stud in the elephant world, but unfortunately for Alice and Irene, they are too old to get pregnant.
Sounds like the perfect world for us, Tim.
That means that Albert could be a good match for Rosie, but since Rosie recently gave birth, that will have to wait. She won't start cycling for up to a year after his birth, so these are baby steps to the possibility of Albert breeding Rosie to the next babies, Sayers said. So they're just getting it on and sounding like Yeti.
So the female elephants are kind of catcalling the big bull male elephant, is what you're telling me.
A little bit. So far, Rosie has only been impregnated through artificial insemination, but zookeepers are hopeful that Rosie and Albert will be a match. If they aren't, the zoo still has big plans for Albert. Oh, do they ever. So if he doesn't get to be a daddy, one of the big goals is that he gets to be a mentor for little baby Thorn, because Thorn is going to need that interaction, Sayers said.
Yes.
He's going to need a big bull to play with and show him how to grow into be a nice big bull.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Show him the ropes, how to be a gigolo.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we off to next? So, yeah, you're right. Just in case anybody's still curious, just remember that when in the woods, if you hear what may be a Yeti, it's most likely just a horny elephant.
Yep. It's nothing.
And that's not tree knocking you're hearing.
No, it's not. It's not tree knocking.
Oh, God. When the forest is a rockin', don't bother knocking, Tim.
That's right. It's nothing more than elephants just getting it on
God.
in the wild.
All right. Next story.
All right. Next story. Let's see here. I'm just bringing up what you sent me. Okay. All right. So next story. Oh, boy, Dave. Oh, boy. NASA, not always handling things with kid gloves. That ought to be their new slogan. NASA may have accidentally destroyed some alien life on Mars in 1976. Whoops.
Ooh, NASA.
You're up there, you're doing stuff. You're not always paying attention. Based on a new report in the New Scientist, NASA's mission from 1976, when the first experiment to search for organic matter on the red planet took place, they might have destroyed by accident what could have been the first discovered organics on Mars. It might have happened. Just a little bit. Back in 1976, researchers were amazed by the fact that the two Viking landers sent by NASA to search for organic matter on Mars did not find anything. Scientists have long suspected that organics exist on Mars, so the findings were totally surprising and contradictory to what they believed and expected. A potential clarification for this came to light when in 2008, NASA's Phoenix lander managed to find perchlorate on the red planet. Perchlorate is a chemical compound that becomes extremely explosive under high temperatures. Whoops. Even though Mars' surface is not that warm, the spectrometer that was used by the Viking landers to search for organic molecules had to heat Martian soil samples. That could be dangerous. Due to the presence of perchlorate in the soil, it is believed that the instrument had burned up any possible organics that might have existed in the samples. Nevertheless, the discovery of perchlorate was not enough to prove that NASA's landers might have found and then accidentally destroyed organic matter. Therefore, scientists had to continue with their examination.
Genocide since 1967.
Yep. The Curiosity rover has recently discovered various organic molecules on Mars, amongst which was chlorobenzene. The specific molecule is produced once perchlorate burns with carbon molecules. Hence, the scientists presume that its origin lies in the burning of the soil samples. Congratulations, NASA. You left behind a mark. The new study is also published last month in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Planets, when a team of researchers re-examined the data from the Viking landers just to be sure that they did not previously leave out any details. What they found is that apparently the Viking landers also discovered chlorobenzene. However, some of the scientists believe this is not enough proof that NASA's landers found and unintentionally burned organic molecules back in 1976. It appears even the scientists from this investigation do not agree on the conclusion. Oh, NASA.
NASA.
You wacky kids.
Shame on you, NASA.
Oh.
All right, Where are we off to next?
Well, a man has performed an exorcism on a train as a possessed woman screams devil in front of commuters. Oh, haven't we all done that?
I love that movie. Wasn't it starring Samuel L. Jackson, Possession on a Train?
It is, yeah. It's a normal day on the New York subway is what I say. I don't know if you've ever ridden the subway in New York, Dave, but that's a normal day.
I cannot say that I have.
Yeah. A smartly dressed man performed an exorcism on a busy train as a woman screamed devil in front of shocked commuters, this time in Mexico City. Footage of the bizarre incident was captured by a fellow passenger traveling on the underground in Mexico City. The video, which has been seen more than 1 million times, was posted with the title, "When You Find Yourself in the Middle of an Exorcism on the Metro." That sounds like a new wave song in the 80s. It shows a man in a suit apparently praying in the name of Jesus Christ to free the allegedly possessed woman in front of him. She just looks like she's reaching out for a candy bar. She doesn't look that possessed. I'm looking at the picture right now. She's like,
"You can eat that jagnut bar?"
"I would like the caramello, please." The man can be heard saying, "In the name of Jesus, leave." And you need to leave in the name of Jesus. You need to go. She said, "But that's chocolate and caramel. I need them both." No. The woman seems to agree she is possessed and says, "Yes, that. Get out," before saying, "The blood of Jesus has the power to release me from all my sins." However, she then begins to lash out at the man, trying to apparently exorcise her, hitting him with a large umbrella. Oh, she's the penguin. The man is not deterred, however, and carries on, telling the seemingly confused woman, "I forgive you." Oh, that's nice of him. The woman, who has not been identified, repeats devil over and over again, while some of the passengers on the train can be seen collecting their things and moving down the wagon. Probably a good idea. According to local media, this is a common scene on the trains in Mexico City. They do shows at 6, 10, and 2. The video went viral on Facebook, where it's been seen more than 1 million times and shared more than 14,000 times. User Richard Contreras wrote, "Two titans in combat." Yeah. There you go.
Well, it's good, though. Somebody cared enough on the train to actually perform an exorcism. Right? It just shows that people are paying attention and are willing to help.
Unless it's, there's like a small guitar case there with donation signs. Maybe it's part of the show, Dave. Maybe it's like Elmo in Times Square. You're supposed to leave tips, and they do the show 5 or 6 times a day.
All right. Where are we off to next?
When will I die? A new blood test could reveal the answer. Life is short, and the saying goes, Dave, and exactly how much time we may have before we shuffle off this mortal coil is anyone's guess, but this uncertainty could be consigned to history, according to the creators of a blood test that they claim predicts a person's life expectancy. The test measures what the scientists at Yale University call a person's phenotypic age. This according to The Guardian. But simply, if a person's phenotypic age is higher than the chronological age, they may be at greater risk of dying. It works by measuring 9 biomarkers in the body that the authors wrote in a paper published in the Biological Sciences Archive, BioRxiv. The paper was not peer-reviewed. Dr. Morgan Levine, assistant professor of pathology at Yale School of Medicine, explained to The Guardian that the test can identify differences in life expectancy between individuals who are seemingly healthy. The team defined healthy as being free of disease and having a normal BMI as the definition of healthy. It's the test picking up how old you look physiologically, Levine told the newspaper. Maybe you're 65 years old, about physiologically you look more like a 70-year-old, so your mortality risk is more like that of a 70-year-old. A clinician could therefore use the results as the basis for personalized lifestyle advice to prevent diseases and raise a patient's life expectancy, she said. To develop the test, the researchers analyzed 42 clinical measures documented in participants of the U.S. National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. Factors such as their lifestyle and medical history were recorded, as well as a cause of death were relevant. The measures include glucose levels, white blood cell count, and levels of albumin, a protein made by the liver. The study featured data on 10,000 people collected between 1988 to 1994. This information enabled scientists to create a test owning in on 9 biomarkers. The method was validated in 11,000 participants of a second study running from 1999 to 2010. Phenotypic age was significantly associated with all-cause mortality and cause-specific mortality. Every year a person's phenotypic age was above their real age, their risk of dying rose by 14% in those between 20 to 39 years old, 10% in the 40 to 65-year-old category, and 8% among 65 to 84-year-olds. Overall, people who age fastest had more diseases than those who aged at a slower pace. The test can also differentiate between individuals who appear to be healthy and those who may have otherwise been misusing traditional health assessments, the authors wrote. It is unclear if and when the test will be rolled out in the general population. Yale University did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Levine told The Guardian the team hopes the test will help the majority of the population who are middle-aged who don't have things wrong with them.
And how many stories do we have left? Are we at the final story?
I believe so. Yeah, I think we're going to skip over that other one. We're at the last story. Human ashes were found at a Lynchburg area Goodwill. You like the Goodwill, Dave?
I'm crazy about the G-Dub, Tim. I love the G-Dub. And boy, when I can get a good deal on other people's remains, I can't even tell you how excited that makes me.
Really?
No.
At the Goodwill store on Timberlake Road there in Campbell County, Virginia.
I go there just look for the salad shooters, not body parts, Tim.
What if you got the body parts in the salad shooter? Just saying.
Huh.
Yeah.
Might be good for like when you want to take them out on the board, on board the ship and spread their ashes more evenly over the ocean. I don't know. Is that a thing? Maybe we should come up with that. Then you don't have to worry about like kind of flinging the ashes in the air and having them blow back on you. You can just use the body shooter. I don't know, what would you call it?
Brings whole new meaning to the phrase, Grandma had a good spread.
God.
Yeah. At the Goodwill store on Timberlake Road, donated goods pour in daily. Clothes, houseware, like trinkets and whatnot, said store manager Denise Keene. But on Saturday, a customer shopping for furniture found something unusual. I was in disbelief when she first told me, said Keene. There was a bag, the ashes, and documentation. Ugh. Store manager Denise Keene had worked at Goodwill for 6 years, so when a death certificate and cremated remains, this is what freaks me out, Dave. This freaks me out right here. Showed up in her store, she was in shock. Losing a parent myself, I would think, oh my goodness, it would be a terrible feeling to have lost something like that, she said. How you lose something like that is beyond me. The ashes were found in what is called a temporary urn. Keene says it's protocol to go through all items that come in through their store, but the ashes slipped by. I was kind of puzzled as to how it got there, but then I realized what had happened because it was in a piece of furniture that we had just taken to the floor, she explained. Fortunately, the box contained information to Tharp Funeral Home. Owner Chris Tharp says losing a loved one's ashes isn't all that uncommon. It isn't? We can look into our records, find the person's name, all the next of kin's contact information, the people that gave up the permission for the cremation. Then we do detective work, trying to reach the family, letting them know that we've got their loved one's remains, said Tharp. Tharp says he's made calls to everyone listed on the remains. As of 3 p.m. Monday, he hadn't heard back from family members yet, but Tharp says they don't typically have trouble eventually finding the rightful owners to cremains. Let's hope not.
That is a little chilling. Yeah, I mean, I'm what I'm going to do, Tim? I'm going to just stick with salad shooters. The salad shakers. Do you remember those? I love those.
Yeah.
The cups you put the salad in, you put a little bit of the sauce on the top and then shake it up.
Right.
I think I'm going to stay away from urns. Although I wonder if you found an urn. No, that wouldn't be right. I was going to say, take it home, do a little work on it, see if you can get any EVP, but that's people's family members. That's wrong. I shouldn't even joke about something like that. But that was the investigator part of me kicking in for a second, that basal lizard part of my brain, Tim, that wanted to go right to investigating. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We've got your emails next, plus some of your calls. That's right. Beyond the Darkness has a voicemail system now. You can call in and leave a 2 to 3 minute story of your own supernatural encounters, and we may play them on an upcoming episode. How do you do it? Just call 651-300-4977, 651-300-4977. You can call and share your paranormal encounters, or if you just want to call in and wish Tim and I well or say hi, you can leave us a message there as well. We do check every one of the messages every day. So make sure you check that out. 651-300-4977. Stay tuned. There's more Beyond the Darkness right after this.
Beyond the Darkness.
We're back. Welcome to the show. This is the best in paranormal talk radio. And now we found a way to incorporate you in the shows. That's right. You can call in and leave us a voicemail. It is 651-300-4977. That's 651-300-4977. I think it records for about 3 to 4 minutes.
3 minutes.
So if you can, 3 minutes. So if you call in and tell us your paranormal encounter and do it in about a 3-minute span, that's perfect. We'd love to hear your story. And if you have other thoughts about the show, you just want to well wish, you leave messages for Tim, for Dave, whatever you'd like to do, that's the best way to reach us. 651-300-4977. Because Tim won't allow me to give out his phone number of 651-48. What?
No.
Well, I'm just showing him what number you won't let me put out. 651.
No. They don't need to know. If you're not going to put it out.
But how are they going to know I didn't already give it out if I don't tell them that there's a definite difference? Because 651-300-4977, that's our voicemail number.
Right,
but Tim's private number is 651-48.
No. They have the voicemail number now. They can leave me messages there.
Oh, well, yeah, I know that, but I was just telling them which number not to call. 651-483. What?
No. They can call the voicemail number. There's email. They can call the voicemail number.
I know, but how do they know not to call your number if I don't give the number not to call, Tim?
Then they just don't know my number to call, Dave.
God, you're so boring. So we will intersperse throughout the show a couple of stories, but let's start off with a couple of stories that we'll read to you first, Tim, if you don't mind me bringing out my dulcet tones.
Oh,
I wonder if we should do a paranormal story as Bill Curtis. Should we try one as Bill Curtis, Tim?
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
I don't think I can. Hey, Dave, me and my brother love the show, just to start off, but I think you and Tim would be interested in what we ran into at our cabin in Kentucky, where we're from. So once a year, we go on a trip out to a good family friend's cabin and stay for a week. We go every January through the 7th. So it's January 1st through the 7th they head out there, Tim. That's just too damn many days in the woods for me. Yeah. Just to get away from work, school, and people. But what we recorded out there was beyond anything else we had ever heard before. My brother and my cousin were out late trying to record some Bigfoot calls and hopefully get something back. And that is exactly what happened. After we clean the audio, it sounds just too perfect to be real. And maybe it was. I'm not going to say it isn't possible for another person a few miles away to just call back what they'd heard my brother and cousin doing, but it definitely was enough to make us think about it. There aren't any houses or people that would do something like that in this area. It's all private property. And it was around midnight or later, in my memory serves correctly. I'll try to get you that recording from my brother and send it in, and some other stories from the same cabin that my family members have if you guys are interested. This is the same cabin that the show Finding Bigfoot did a show on a year ago. They fabricated it so badly, it just became another stereotypical crock of crap. But I assure you, there really is something out there in those woods. Thanks for reading, and that comes from Tori. Wow, Tim, Tori just called out Finding Bigfoot.
Wow.
I wonder if the call sounded anything like this.
That sounds more like an elephant, Dave.
Yeah, it's just a female elephant creeping around in the woods looking for a bull elephant. We know that now, Tim.
Yeah.
Our next story. I really don't know exactly how to start this off, but here goes. Back in 2008, I almost lost my life in the hands of someone else. I had only been dating him for a few months, but he seemed like a nice guy. He was actually very nice and was great with my son. But one night he changed. We were going to bed, and he and my son fell asleep while I stayed awake. I wasn't tired. But about 20 or so minutes after he fell asleep, my boyfriend sat straight up in bed. When I looked at him, he looked like a completely different person. His eyes looked really dark, kind of glossy and almost cross-eyed. His skin even looked like a different shade, almost like grayish white. He had naturally tan skin, and he starts talking to someone, but there's nobody else in the room. The way he talked sounded strange. It was like he was talking in this gurgling, choking sound. His body was doing very strange movements. The only way I can describe it is he looked like a handicapped person who was very uncomfortable. His body was twisting and contorting in weird positions, and he was making strange gestures with his hands. I've never seen him like this before, and I was so afraid that I sat in the corner of the room recording the whole thing on my phone. I can't remember what he said, but he said something that scared me so much that I screamed, and he snapped out of it. He had no recollection of anything that had happened, and at that very moment I realized that he looked like he was demonically possessed. It took me a very long time to even feel comfortable falling asleep. I eventually did fall asleep, but for some reason I woke in the middle of the night. That's when I realized that my 4-year-old son was nowhere in the apartment. I ran outside and saw him standing at the edge of the pool. We lived on the second-floor apartment, and somehow he managed to get his way down the stairs and over the locked gate to the pool and was just about to jump in. If I didn't wake up at that very moment, he would have drowned. A week after this happened, I came home from getting lunch, and I knew something was off about my boyfriend. He kind of had that strange look I saw about a week before. I gave him his food, and he threw it back at me as hard as he could and was clearly angry. I told him to get out of my house because I wasn't going to tolerate him treating me like that. That's when he walked up to me and started bashing my head into the wall and repeatedly punched me in the face over and over and over until my eyes started getting blurry and my vision was doubled. He started dragging me off by the hair into the bedroom, and that is where he said he was going to finish me off. My 4-year-old son began hitting him and told him to stop hitting his mommy. Then he snapped out of it, looked down, and it was like in a split second he went back to normal. He called his sister to come over, and she waited there with me until morning to call my mom and take me to the hospital. I had the entire right side of my face caved in, a shattered nose, eye socket, and bleeding in my brain. The doctor said that I shouldn't have survived, and if he would have hit me one more time, I wouldn't have made it. He was charged with attempted murder, but accepted a plea bargain, and charges were dropped to aggravated assault with disfigurement. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. I want to rewind a year when one of my friends came barging into my house frantically. I had worked with her at the ski lodge over in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we had lost touch when the season was over. I guess she had done some Native American ritual. She was Native American and told me she saw that my boyfriend was going to kill me and my son, and that he worked for Satan. She was acting very strange and erratic and was speaking about some black mass and satanic cult. She wasn't the girl I worked with. She was so convinced my boyfriend was going to kill me that she kidnapped my son, which led us on a high-speed chase with police to retrieve my son. But that's a whole story in itself. She acted like she was possessed. Now, before I go further, I want to say that I've always believed in the paranormal. I live in a house that was very much haunted as a child, and daily unexplainable things would happen. So in my mind, I believed there was something beyond life here on Earth. After my ex was sentenced to prison, I immediately started having paranormal experiences. It started off with electronics. It seemed like everything electrical I touched would burn up. They only lasted a few days, but in that short time, I had a laptop charger melt. My iPod fried. 2 of my computers and a television all surged and stopped working. One of the things that was really strange was when I was boiling a pot of water, the stove burner got so hot it melted part of the pan to the stove. I don't know if that's paranormal or not, but it sure seems strange. Anyway, so I had made friends with my neighbor, and he worked for a mortuary transportation company. I was really intrigued about his job, mostly because I had a strong interest in the paranormal. And I was curious about death, so I started working with him. I had countless things happen in the short time I worked with him. One night, we were picking up a guy who had just passed away in his home. When we got to the house, I waited in the van because I was extremely exhausted. As I started to drift off, I feel a brush against my leg. At the same time, I had the most vivid vision of some random man. I could see what he was wearing, a white shirt and a red name tag with gray pants. He was a man in his mid-70s with gray hair. When my neighbor came back to the van, I told him what had just happened. I explained what he looked like and what he was wearing. He turned white as a ghost and said that the guy I just described was the guy who was in the house deceased, sitting in a chair. I had no way of knowing who this guy was or what he looked like, as they didn't give any information of who the person is that we were to pick up. Sure enough, when I saw him, it was the exact same person who I had envisioned. When we got to the mortuary to drop him off, we went down the elevator to go out and get him to the freezer. While in the elevator, this small orange ball of light comes out of the gurney and shot up toward the light. We both saw it and looked at each other like we had known what we just saw. We looked around for a bug or anything that the orange ball could be, but there was nothing. We were in a small confined elevator, so there wasn't much place it could have gone. I've had several other occurrences while working in the mortuary business, such as when we arrived at one of the mortuaries, there was a woman left on the embalming table. In my peripheral vision, I could see what she looked like. There was a person circling around her body. Another time was when we heard a child talking. Well, it sounded like a little boy. Sure enough, there was a small boy who had just been put in the freezer. This is when I decided it was much too much to handle, and I quit. My paranormal experiences didn't end there. In fact, I believe I've opened a door wide open. One night, my friend had come to pick me up. As I was walking to his car, I stopped right in front of my neighbor's house and saw water kind of bubbling out of the ground. I immediately felt like something was wrong and thought that someone was dead inside. I told my friend I had a bad feeling about someone dying in the apartment, but we just kind of brushed it off and left. That night, I woke in the middle of the night and saw this dark figure standing in the corner of my room. I was experiencing an episode of sleep paralysis, probably one of the most intense episodes I've ever had. I believe that was a sign. About a week later, I passed my neighbor's house again and still have the strongest feeling of dread. I told my friend and my mom again about my feelings. They told me to call the landlord. So I kind of laughed and asked them what I would say, that I had a bad feeling. So I didn't call. Another week goes by. Same thing happens. I tell my mom and friend and decide that I'm going to call the landlord in the morning. The next morning I wake up, go out of the patio and see the fire department and the landlord standing at his door. They open the door and a huge gust of death swept over everyone. The smell was so strong I threw up, and so did several other people. It turns out that they had been dead in the apartment for 16 days, which would have been the exact night that I had first walked by his house. It was a Thursday when they found him. It was a Tuesday the night I walked by. This is when I realized I had some sort of mediumship. The same thing happened 2 other times while I worked at the motel. I got the same feeling when I walked by a hotel room. I would stop and tell my coworker, and sure enough, I was right. There is one other time I discovered a body going by my gut feeling, but I don't really like to talk about it. All that stuff happened about 7 years ago, but ever since, it seems like I can always feel if there is some sort of energy. I feel like when I lost my life, I gained some sort of gift, mediumship. I don't know, but I do believe that my ex was possessed, and I do feel like the whole thing has led me to be fascinated with the paranormal. There are so many other instances of unexplainable things that have happened ever since that incident, but I should be writing a book about it. Yikes, that's a lot of activity.
Boy, is it ever.
Jessica, I'm glad you're still alive, and I'm glad that you're here to share your stories with us. And if you want to share your stories with us, you can do it by emailing me, dave@darknessradio.com. That's dave@darknessradio.com. Or you can call our new Beyond voicemail, 651-300-4977, 651-300-4977, and share your stories. Share all of them. Just call in and leave us each one a separate story. Introduce yourself, where you're from, and tell us your story at the Beyond voicemail, 651-300-4977. As a matter of fact, we have a couple of calls to integrate into tonight's show. Tim, who is our first caller?
Let's start out with Harold from New Mexico.
All right, Harold from New Mexico, welcome to Beyond the Darkness.
Hi, Dave Darkey and Tenacious Tim. This is Harold from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Love your show. Been listening to it since you guys been on the air for a while. Just love all the great topics that you guys talk about and, of course, joke about. You guys make me laugh. You guys definitely brighten my night, so to speak. But share with you a paranormal thing that happened to me in 2014. And basically, it was on a Saturday, and here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I was working at a Creamland place where, you know, you have to guard trucks and check on trucks and stuff like that and do a patrol. Mostly, it was a graveyard shift, of course. And was doing, you know, okay, doing my rounds and everything. And at the time, I was listening to Coast AM with Art Bell. And, you know, was just sitting there, you know, when in my radio on, was listening to him and was doing my report. And of course, you know, it was in, you know, there was, some cars going by, you know, regular type traffic a little bit. And, you know, of course you can hear the crickets chirping. And, at the time I didn't know, think about it till way later. But, all of a sudden it just got real quiet. No crickets chirping. No cars going by. And it got like really calm, like really quiet. And, all of a sudden, I hear this low rumbling noise. And I was all like, what the heck, you know? I thought maybe it was just an airplane flying overhead, you know, and stuff, because we do have an airport, which is, you know, not too far away. So, and it intensified. This rumbling just got louder and louder and louder. So I was all like, what the heck, you know? So I stick my head out of the driver's side window and happened to look up. And when I looked up, there was these 3 round bright lights. And it was I couldn't actually see the shape or the design of it, but to me, it looked like maybe a triangle shape, and it was maybe like about, I'm going to estimate maybe 30 feet above me. It was going real slow, and I was just like in awe, you know, because it caught me unaware. And and then it just finally started moving away, and it, you know, was moving away slowly. So, you know, so I got out of my car to get a better look at it, and outside there was these steel stairs that were outside, you know, where you can climb and get more of a better view. So I went up to those stairs and was looking at, you know, to get a better view, and it kept on going, you know, like towards the mountains. And it, you know, and it went towards the mountains, going towards the mountains, and then all of a sudden they just blinked out, like they just completely disappeared. And so I was kind of like in awe about that, and you know, I didn't have any nightmares or anything about of that, but it's always stuck in the back of my mind to this day about it. And of course, you know, I never called the Albuquerque airport or anything to see if they had any objects in that area. But that was just something that I'll never forget, and it'll always be in my mind. And of course, I've had some other paranormal experiences that happened to me too while I was a security guard. I still am a security guard to this day. Been doing it for 19 years. But I just wanted to relate my story to you, and feel free to add sound effects and you know, your guys' stick. I just love your guys' humor and everything. So and that's about it. So all right, well, you guys have a good one, and definitely looking forward to listening more to your guys' show. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in and making your story part of our show. And remember, again, that phone number to call us on is 651-300-4977. 651-300-4977. Or you can email me like Alex did. Hey, Tim and Dave. Wait, what the? Tim and Dave? Tim, that just hurts my mouth to even say it in that order.
Why?
Blah. Because you don't go watch Shirley and Laverne. You don't watch Squiggy and Lenny. You don't watch Days and Happy. You watch Happy Days, Tim. Squiggy and Lenny. Lenny and Squiggy. It's Laverne and Shirley. Tim and Dave, it just hurts my mouth to say it. All right, maybe it really doesn't. Now, mind you, I've always been a skeptic. But I've always loved the paranormal, be it Bigfoot, aliens, Loch Ness, or whatever goes bump in the night. It's always been of great interest to me. I've loved your show for several years now after discovering it while listening to an episode of Coast to Coast AM. Now, my story is short and takes place many years ago when I was a kid in the early 80s. My parents and the neighbors were hanging out having a few light Millers, Tim. Not Miller Lights. So this guy, now I understand, he just writes like Yoda speaks. So things go in backwards. Okay. So now he basically was saying, hey, Dave and Tim at the beginning. He did it all kind of, bass-ackwards, Tim. It makes sense to me. Anyway, the neighbors were out having a few light Millers. Miller Lights for those of us on this planet, Tim. In the neighbor's yard. And we kids were playing. It was shortly after dark when we decided it was time to play tag. For those of us that have actually gone outside to play in suburbia, know that this is the perfect time to play this game. My neighborhood was like most, I guess, except ours was near a creek that ran for many miles and passed by several thick stands of trees. So we'd been playing for a while when I was running away from whomever it was at that moment when I saw something. A huge, almost glowing white shape walking between two trees in the front yard in front of me. It looked like a mixture of the Patterson-Gimlin film and one of those costume villains from Scooby-Doo. It quickly passed behind a tree and was gone and didn't reappear on the other side. I was so shocked and terrified that I couldn't take my eyes from where it had been, and I ran straight into another tree, knocking myself silly. After the excitement of me hurting myself was over, I told my brother about it, and he, like everyone else I've told since, has thought that the same thing, that I just imagined it, due to nearly knocking myself out. But I know what I saw. I saw it before I hit the tree, and to this day, I can still see it in my mind's eye as clearly as I did that late summer evening. I've gone on to calling what I saw Bigfoot's ghost. Have either of you ever heard of anything like this? Anything like what I've described? I've given up on really finding out what it was, but any help or thoughts would be much appreciated, and that comes from Alex. I don't know, Tim, you want to weigh in on this one? Bigfoot's ghost, what do you think?
I've never heard of Bigfoot's ghost before, to be honest.
I have. There's a big theory that that's what we're seeing. Bigfoot is nothing more than a ghost. Something to wrap your mind around. While you're doing that, try this mushroom, Tim. It'll help you wrap your mind around it so much better. Hello, Laverne and Shirley. What the hell? Oh, Dave and Tim. Big fans from Southern California. Love the topics and jokes between the two of you. I wanted to tell you about an experience I had a few years ago. It was June of 2006. I was exhausted due to finals week while I was working on earning my bachelor's degree. And I worked in the evenings for FedEx. Bleep out FedEx if you're not legally allowed to mention that name of the company. Oh, we are. We just can't say UP beep. Anyway, I was driving home after my shift ended. A little after 3 a.m., I rolled the windows down and enjoyed the cool breeze while listening to some oldies. I was getting off the I-210 in San Bernardino, getting close to the exit light. That's when I noticed a car stopped on the shoulder, and what appeared to be a very large man. I got closer and noticed his face wasn't a normal face. He, or it, looked inhuman. No ears, a weird nose, a pronounced brow, and eyes that glowed bright when my headlights shone on him. I started becoming afraid, which was something I'm not used to. Also, I should note, I'm 6'3", and at that same time, I exercised a lot, wrestled and boxed. I'm not cocky, never was, but I grew up in rough areas in Los Angeles. Fighting was just normal. I wanted to get the hell away from there right at that moment. So I hit the gas pedal and almost crashed trying to get off the freeway. I pulled over to calm myself down because myself was shaking. I kept telling myself to calm down. I got angry. I decided to go and help a stranded motorist. That's what I kept telling myself I saw. I grabbed a flashlight, the tire iron, just to be safe, my buck knife, and I headed back to the stopped vehicle. I called out, "Anyone there?" and checked out the car and the area. There were weird footprints in the dirt. Didn't look like shoe prints. There was a handprint on the trunk. I say hand because the print didn't really look human. I started getting an awful feeling in my lower back, and I realized I was in a heightened state of alarm. I couldn't shake the feeling I wasn't alone there. I kept calling out, "Who's there?" But I'll admit, I didn't want to find out or get an answer. I went back to my car, drove home, and didn't sleep for 3 days. My roommates thought I was having a psychotic episode. But when I told them what happened, they started freaking out. One thought it was a demon. Another thought alien, which I'm more inclined to believe. And it's been over 10 years since that incident, and I'll be happy to never have another incident again like that. Sorry for the long emails, any spelling errors, as I am keeping my kids entertained while my wife is cooking. Keep entertaining us with the best in paranormal talk, and a speedy recovery to Tim. I miss your old shows when you guys played songs during breaks, like Eye in the Sky for the alien-themed shows. But I'll keep listening. Sincerely, your friend Ed from the high desert, California. Well, thank you for continuing to listen, Tim, or Ed, or Tim. Tim, I like when you listen too, Tim. I want to be honest.
I appreciate that.
Hi, Dave. I'm going to get the gushing out of the way first. You already have. You just addressed me and me alone. I've been listening to your show for years. I think you're great. Thanks. It's really sweet. I can't tell you how much that means to me. Me, Dave, not Tim, because you didn't mention him. But I can't tell you how many times I've nodded my head at my radio thinking, I've experienced that in regard to something being discussed on your show. After listening to your interview with Dr. Scott Kolbaba, I felt compelled to write to you. Now, mind you, Tim, I should mention that this email goes back to Monday, March 13th of 2017. I told you I'm working through some of the old stories that we've got that I never got around to. I get a lot of emails. So we try to intersperse new and old stories in there. Maybe you were off that week, and that's why she didn't address you. I don't remember.
That's fine. Sure.
I've been an emergency room nurse for over 20 years, working at a pediatric hospital and then a large city hospital. I'm also a medical intuitive. I've witnessed and experienced some amazing things, both beautiful and tragic. I've encountered the paranormal on many occasions. Many of my colleagues have as well. I've seen unconscious people wake up moments from their death, their faces beautiful, pain gone, smiling and talking to someone unseen in the room. They say sometimes it's a loved one who's passed or a being described as an angel. Then they pass in peace. I've seen a white mist rise from a person at the moment of their death. I felt a room turn from sad and dark to light and peaceful. Hospitals are so charged with emotional energy that it would be more unlikely that there wouldn't be paranormal activity as opposed to the other way around. There are hallways and rooms where you hear walking, apparitions, elevators opening and going to floors on their own, mists, shadow people talking, whispers, cries, sudden cold spots, you name it. I've had so many experiences I could write a book. I'm a Reiki practitioner, sensitive, and I'm also a member of a paranormal investigation team. I'm not trying to go on about myself. I'm just explaining that my experience outside of work has always involved the paranormal in one way or another. I feel very privileged that I have been a career that allows me to help and comfort as well as experience some very sacred and incredibly beautiful moments. Death can be horrible and tragic. It can also be beautiful in its final moments. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Keep up the fine work that you do. Sincerely, Karen. Thank you, Karen. That's very sweet of you. Tim, do we have another recorded story, another listener call?
Yeah, let's go to Jeffrey Johnson, who's out in Central Appalachia.
And he called in at 651-300-4977. You can call in and leave your message again, 651-300-4977.
Hello, Dave and Tim. This is Jeffrey Johnson. I'm calling you from here in Central Appalachia. I wanted to call and let you know about a couple of things that's actually happening here locally. Lots of coal camps here. If you know anything about those, I'm sure you do. A lot of camp houses that were built central around a mine. They had a company store. They made their own script and things that they would spend in those stores and things like that. Anyway, these little camp houses are terribly haunted. Most of those, and the reason being that I think anyway, the mines that were here, actually when someone would pass, there were Hungarians, there were Germans, lots of Chinese even. There were all sorts of different minority groups that would live here in the coal camps, work together, live together, play together, and all those things. When someone would pass away inside the mines, sometimes and tragically so, that their bodies would be covered up and left and just moved on with the work, which is terrible, I know, but, well, these cells are needing some sort of resolution to the end, and they do haunt these homes. I do live in a house built in 1936 for the McKinley Stone Coal Company. My house is terribly haunted. I deal with shadow figures, apparitions. I have not seen myself a full-body apparition yet, but I do know that some of my family members have claimed to. What I have witnessed myself, though, is actually things being misplaced, then reappearing. I've seen rocks not fall or from the ceiling or anything like that, but actually just be in the home. No reason for them being there at all. We come home and there's pebbles and temperature changes, things like that nature, but nothing too scary. I don't guess I could actually share with you and your listeners, but these homes are drastically haunted. So just wanted to share that with you. I do believe my other personality, Earl, called yesterday. I apologize if he made any types of strange remarks and all, but we love your show. Thank you. Please continue the good work, and until next time, live long the darkness.
Another cool story. Thank you very much for sharing that. Tim, why don't we play one more of the called-in stories from our listeners? And remember, folks, if you're new to this, you can call in now and be a part of our show. Our Beyond voicemail is 651-300-4977. That's 651-300-4977. And you may be featured on an upcoming episode just like our next guest. Who is this, Tim?
Let's go out to Black Dog in Tampa.
Good morning from the sunny shores of Tampa, Florida. My name's Black Dog. I've got a strange tale to tell you, all the way from the hills of Lancaster, Kentucky. I was raised up there when I was a small boy. It's about the mid-'90s. You know, just normal farm boy. Nothing too spectacular. Every so often out there in the middle of the night, you can see the sky perfectly. Well, one night when I was about 5 or 6 years old, we were disturbed by the sounds of some kind of screaming sound. It wasn't screaming, really. The more that it continued, we noticed that it sounded like something this large and agitated. So when we proceeded to go outside, I was only about 6 or 7. So my memory's a little hazy on it, but I remember that my dad went out to his truck, and being a staff sergeant of the Air Force, he always had a few more things in his truck than he should, such as a spotlight. So him and my grandfather are sitting there, taking the spotlight that's plugged into his cigarette adapter in the truck, and he is shining a light back into the hills there in the back of our home. And to let you really know, like, our home up there in Lancaster is surrounded on 3 sides by a hill, and on 2 sides it's surrounded by a creek. So it's, once you pass over the bridges and stuff, you're pretty much into a pretty much a dead man's turn. It pretty much abandons anybody, and you have to run down the other side of the hill, and it makes a lot of noise, and there's fences and everything. So my dad and them were probably like, it's probably teenagers. We'll spotlight them, get them to stop pulling their nonsense, and that'll be that. Well, lo and behold, my dad, lights up the area with the spotlight. The pair of eyes are reflected back. So as he's sitting there and watching them, and they're watching us, we're like, what the heck is that? My dad goes, they're owls. There's really, really big owls out there. Now, most people, they don't consider, something like this unusual at all. But however, the sound that these owls are making, the size of how large they stood out in the spotlight, sitting amongst the trees and flying around, was really what drew our attention. Now, a few years later, probably when I was about 8 or 9, we had another incident. And, again, it was when my dad was visiting, and I was living up there with my grandparents for the summer, because my dad was topping back and forth between his post, and it was just me and him. So, as I was saying, it was another summer visit from my dad while I was up there.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that story with us, and we encourage you all to give it a try as well. Give us a call, 651-300-4977, or you can keep doing it the old-fashioned way and just email us your stories, dave@darknessradio.com, and we may feature them on an upcoming show. But, man, I like hearing the listener's voice. I like hearing your story, because your voices sometimes tell the story better than I'll ever do. So give us a call, 651-300-4977. And I do want to make a quick mention. You know, Tim and I have worked with Second Harvest Heartland for years, and we have a special program going on right now. As you know, I'm also the host of Midnight in the Desert, Monday through Friday, the best in anomalous talk radio. And we have got subscriptions open. Right now, it's $4.99 a month to join and listen, and that way you get all the great activity, all the great programs you hear Monday through Friday. If you can't stay up late for the show, you can download them and take them with you and listen to them anywhere at any time. And for everybody that subscribes in the month of July, for your first time, if you're a brand new subscriber, of that $4.99, $4 is going to be donated to Second Harvest Heartland. So we're going to continue to help feed the hungry and the needy, and we are here to do that by making a difference. So not only do you get a great brand new show, you get Midnight in the Desert 5 days a week, plus Beyond the Darkness 2 days a week. You can subscribe now to Midnight in the Desert and know that $4 of that $4.99 for your first month is going to go a long way to help people in need. Every $1 we raise supplies, 3 meals to a person in need, 3 square full meals with just $1 of a donation. So when we make your $4 donation, you're going to help feed somebody for 4 days. That's monstrous. So please help us out. Go to midnightinthedesert.com/hunger. That's midnightinthedesert.com/hunger and subscribe now and never miss a minute of the best in anomalous talk radio, Monday through Friday with Midnight in the Desert with Dave Schrader, and then continue to enjoy your shows right here every weekend. It is the best in paranormal talk radio, Beyond the Darkness with me, Dave Schrader, and that guy, the lovable oaf that he is, Tim Dennis. Okay, Tim, our next story.
All right.
You're going to like the way this one starts, Tim. Hi, Dave and Tim. Huh?
Sure.
You're in there this time. Are you happy?
Oh, sure.
My name is Chris, with a K, and I come from a town in Scotland called Motherwell. My story comes from when I was younger, about 8 or 9 years old. My family and I went to a caravan site. If you don't know, a caravan is a cheap, poor version of an RV. It is really as bad as it sounds. In one room of the caravan was a set of bunk beds. I know, the gateway to all paranormal activity, and a single bed, which I slept in. My brother had the top bunk and my cousin had the lower bunk, so the beds were laid out in an L shape. From where I was laying on my back, I could see out of the window in the room. With the curtains closed, I could see out of the wee gap between the window and the curtains. One night I was laying there and something approached the window and looked in. It never saw me, but it was staring through the window into the curtains. It never moved. I then fell asleep, and it never appeared again. The strange thing is that for my whole life, I always thought it was a man, like a drunk man looking in the window, which is weird in itself. But as the years have went by, I've had lucid dreams about this situation. Every time I dream about it, the figure changes and becomes more wolf-like. And last year when I had the dream, it was a bipedal, and has always stayed that way since. I've always been fascinated by wolves, so I wonder if this could relate to a guardian animal, a totem. I have no idea. I was thinking about telling Dark Waters to see if he knew anyone else from a dogman level. One thing before I go. Last week, you watched that video of the possessed man in the hospital in Brazil. Watch videos about the reaction to the people on the drug Flakka. It makes you look and act like a possessed person. It's nuts. Thanks for the great show, and I love listening to you guys every day. That comes from Chris. Thank you, Chris. Hi, Dave and Tim. I'm a new listener, and I love listening to your podcasts. I have an interest in paranormal activity, but sadly, I have not experienced anything myself. But the best story I've heard locally is from my husband. Here it goes. Richard was an 18-year-old student studying at a local college in British Columbia. He lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment. This particular evening, he had a few friends over to socialize over a few beers. After his friends went home, he went to bed. He was in a deep sleep with the blankets tucked up under his chin. Suddenly, the blankets were ripped off of him. He was shocked out of his sleep, wondering what just happened. He called out asking who was there, but there was no answer. He got up, turned on the bedroom light, and made his way through the rest of the apartment, turning on all the lights in the kitchen and hallway and living room. After a thorough search, there was no one in the apartment. He walked back to the bedroom to go back to bed, and his blankets were gone. He was totally freaked out now. He walked through the apartment once again, this time searching for the blankets. Making his way to the living room, he saw his blankets neatly folded on the couch. This was the only encounter he ever experienced as he moved out within a few months. Hope your listeners enjoy that story, and that comes from Juanita, Tim. Juanita.
All right.
That's man, I could use a ghost that's willing to come in and make my bed or fold my blankets and sheets. I don't know about you.
Yeah. So where do you sign me up?
Apparently, Juanita knows. Dear Dave and Tim, they say every author has an event that spurs them to write, and this is mine. Before we start, I have a request. If you use this on your show, please omit my name. Every part of this story is true. I have taken pains to keep it the same over the years as a way to be certain I did not imagine it at all. I put pieces of it in my work from time to time, but never the whole event. I tell the story so rarely, so I hope you enjoy it. In 1975, a ski resort opened about an hour north of the Twin Cities next to the St. Croix River. It was not huge, and it sat in a sparsely populated area of Minnesota. It was new and in age when there were no cell phones or iPods. All of the kids in school wanted to go there. I joined our school ski club, and we went every Thursday, often enough that I got to know the owner and would talk to him about skiing or sometimes ski with him. In 1977, I joined the Navy and went away. Whenever I got leave and came home, it was wintertime. I would go to the resort and ski. Each time, I would renew my friendship with the owner and join him on the trails to ski until closing time. One winter, I came home and, as usual, decided to go to the resort. This was a Wednesday. My sister, niece, and one of her friends asked me, to come with me, so we made a night of it. When we arrived at the resort, I found myself behind the rental counter. We talked for a while, then I made my way to the slopes. He was off the skis until a neck injury healed, so I was skiing alone. It was an off night with hardly anyone on the resort. No schools, there were no schools or classes scheduled that night. It was about 10 degrees with light snow and a slight wind. I thought I would get bored about the skiing, but it was fun and time passed quickly. It was the last trip down before I knew it, and with what I thought was the end of a good day. I returned to the chalet and searched for everyone who needed a ride home with me, but they were all missing. I eventually found my sister in the chalet bar and asked her if she had seen our niece and her friend. She said she saw them once standing next to a cross-country trail entrance on a run called Moonshine. This was bad. If they had gone down the run, the girls would be in somewhere in the dark woods surrounding the mountain. I hurried to the front desk, my sister in tow, and told the owner I had to go back up the mountain. My sister asked me to wait for her, but I was impatient and skied to the chairlift before she ever got out of the chalet. Now, the mountain didn't seem so fun. It was a cold, barren place with a touch of danger. The resort that seemed so familiar to me was changing unpleasantly. The lift operators had been warned of my coming and were ready to let me on. They may not have known my name, but we had talked casually through the night each time I used the lift. They, too, seemed worried. They let me know the ski patrol would be beginning their last check of the runs in a few minutes. As I let the chair catch me behind the legs and lift me into the air, I waved to them and held on to the cold steel of the chair support. There were no people ahead of me in the chairs, and I never saw my sister reach the lift before I got too far away to see the base of the hill and the falling snow. A movie about a Bigfoot attacking a ski resort played in my mind when I rode up the trails. A stupid movie so fake that it should not have bothered me, but I rose up the mountain and I grew frightened, half expecting a Bigfoot to reach up out of the woods and snatch me off the lift. The bald top of the mountain came into view, and by the time I skied off the lift at the top, I was both worried and paranoid. I felt like I was being watched, that to fall or make noise would be a fatal mistake. I pulled across the top of the mountain to the entrance of the trail Moonshine. I was completely alone. I looked into the dark entrance of the trail and saw a reflection, a light from further down past a corner. Making as little noise as possible, I skied to the first corner and followed the turn, taking care not to fall. The next corner had a single light on a pole, casting dark shadows at the entrance to the two trails. I had come to check. One of the trails was 3 miles long, and the other was 5 miles long. With the fresh snow, I thought if anyone had taken the trails, I would see their tracks and could alert the ski patrol to the possibility where they were lost in the woods. To say I was frightened was an understatement. I was terrified, yet I had no reason to feel like I was being watched or threatened. I had experienced danger in the service, and this was nothing like that. It was visceral. I came to a stop under the lone light and looked at the dark trail entrance. The one to the west had no tracks leading to it. I pulled to the second entrance and looked down at the snow. 2 sets of tracks crossed the manila rope used to block the entrance of the 5-mile-long trail. The tracks were covered with about a 1/4 inch of fresh snow. Whoever had made these crossed the rope in the last hour or two. I stared into the darkness and tried to decide what I had to do, but I already knew the answer. I had to go after them. Even if they chose not to go down the cross-country trail, the only way off that trail once you passed the ropes was an expert run that was a chute dropping rapidly to rejoin moonshine about 200 yards from where I stood. The name of that short trail? The Devil's Run. I looked back at the trail, hoping for a ski patrol person to wave down, but I was alone. I started to enter the run, but just couldn't seem to cross the rope. I know it was fear that stopped me, but I had no obvious reason to fear. I was an expert skier. I knew the trails. So gritting my teeth, I worked my way further onto the trail, but could not get myself to go into the dark. I turned away and felt shame as the fear tensed or lessened, making me stop in my tracks. Looking around once more, I confirmed I was still alone. Then, almost as if a casual act, I twisted and shouted my niece's name into the darkness. Immediately, 2 children's voices came from the woods. They screamed in terror, one of them shouting that it was killing them. As the screaming continued, I stood there in shock, unable to breathe or move. As quickly as they had come, the screams stopped. But I thought I could hear whimpering just over the sound of the trees rustling in the wind. I must have shouted incoherently and moved before my mind started to fully function. I realized I was turned and facing the woods, pointing forward before my mind once again screamed for me to stop. There was something wrong with this situation, but I was at a loss for understanding any of it. I just knew I was going into the dark and I would be alone to face whatever was happening to those children. Regretfully, forlornly, I looked back up the trail and with relief saw a ski patrol coming my way. The screaming stopped. When we came to a stop next to me, I rapidly told him what was happening, but he had an odd look on his face. It seemed like he thought I was lying to him, so I told him I was going down the trail. Anger had defeated the fear that held me before. I told him I was going down the hill. Anger had defeated the fear that held me before I could go. He stopped me and entered the trail, telling me we would meet at the exit a few hundred yards away. I turned and started to ski, but within seconds, the man shot out of the trail exit without stopping. I worked hard to catch up with him and finally caught him at the base of the mountain near the chairlift. I grabbed his arm and stopped the ski patrol, demanding to know what happened. He said nothing was in the woods, just go home. We argued for a few minutes, me saying there were children up there, him telling me to just go home. Finally, I pulled up the chairlift and made it to get on for a ride back up the mountain. The ski patrol yelled at the lift operators to shut it down. The argument got worse and was almost a fight. When I saw my sister coming down the moonshine with another member of the ski patrol, I pulled to her, but before I could say anything, she said they had heard children crying. The ski patrol with her had made my sister come down the mountain without entering the woods. The argument continued at the chairlift for a few more minutes before I realized I could get my friend to let me back up the mountain. I hurried to the chalet where my niece and her friend were waiting and charged in to find the owner. He was at the front desk, and I quickly told him what happened, my sister joining us as I spoke, confirming the screams of the children. His reaction as I talked was odd, as if he had heard this before. When I asked to be let back up the hill, he told me that no, it was not something for me to concern myself over, to think of it as just ghosts. By now, most of the members of the ski patrol were standing behind us. I suspected they were there to keep me from going back up that hill when they moved in front of the door. We all took our ski boots off, and I took my sister, niece, and her friend to the car. I did not look back to see if anyone was watching us depart. I was quiet. None of this made sense. My favorite place to ski was tainted, and I was determined to come back and look down that trail. The drive to Stacy, where I dropped off my niece, was silent. My sister and I had nothing to say. My niece thought we were mad at her, but I did have enough voice to tell her something had happened, and I did not want to talk about it. Once they were out of the car, I took the back road to Wyoming and turned to head home down a road with a few houses. A mile out of Wyoming, I began to feel the fear again, only this time it was worse. I looked in the rearview mirror and I saw nothing. No lights of the farms we passed, just an impenetrable darkness. The side view mirrors were the same. As the fear grew, my foot lightened on the accelerator and the car slowed. I could feel the hair on my head pushing against my hat. With amazement, I realized tears were flowing down my cheeks. I looked at my sister and she was crying silently too. When I looked to the rearview mirror again without knowing why I did it, I knocked the mirror askew with my right hand. I asked her to look behind the car and tell me what she saw. Slowly, she turned, then gasped and spun forward and sunk in the seat. She managed to tell me to keep driving. The car had slowed to 10 miles an hour. I sped up and tried my best to drive while well under these circumstances. After about a half mile, as we passed a farmhouse, the feeling went away as if a person had just switched off a light. We drove the rest of the way home without incident. I asked what she saw, and my sister said she saw death was behind us and refused to ever talk about it again. A few days later, I returned to the ship. Within a year, I was involved in an explosion that took away any skiing for the rest of my life. I never went back to that resort. I never saw the owner again. A few years ago, someone finally persuaded me to tell my story, and when it was done, he said he was going skiing at that resort in a few days and would ask about ghosts. When he returned, he said that there are more people who experience the same thing we faced that night. Occasionally, I go ghost hunting, but I will never go to the resort for personal reasons. I finally asked my sister a year ago what she saw that night. I thought the distance of time would lessen the impact of the event, but she is still haunted by it. She told me something huge was sitting in the rear seat. She said it was huge black shadow with red eyes. I'm left with the same question each time I think about that trip. Who were the children in the woods? I looked for old murder reports but never found any. What was killing them? What was in the car that night? My sister felt we would have just disappeared if that thing had wanted to. Until I die, I will not forget those screams, and that is why I write. Wow, that's a creepy-ass story, and that comes from, well, I'm not supposed to give the name.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's a chilling one. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right here in Minnesota, you say. Huh. Yet another reason to stay indoors, Tim. Hey, guys, I've often heard you say you're afraid of death. I, too, was killed in a terrible car crash. I didn't see a tunnel of light either, though the other person in the car did. I was unconscious for a good while and was left in peace about the whole thing. If I had died, it would have been just fine. I wish this for you. Oh, the fact that I would feel better about it and feel fine? I don't, but thanks. Now for a great story. I cannot explain it. All I can do is say that it is holy. And it is true. My husband asked me in 2017 what I wanted for Mother's Day. I told him self-watering tomato planters made from 5-gallon buckets. He gave me a blank stare, and I told him to Google it. We went to bed. The college-age son was out of town. The next morning, he woke me up, waving a magazine in my face, asking when I had put... Hold on. The next morning, he woke me waving a magazine in my face, asking when I had put it by the bed. As I had been asleep, I was clueless. He explained that when he woke up, a magazine open to the diagram of how to build a tomato planter from a 5-gallon bucket was on his very neat bedside table, where it was the first thing he saw. I had been asleep and would never even have cracked a Scientific American to show him a handy reference article in the first place, and would have waited until the sun come up. The rest of the story, my mother died in the house the year before after a long, terrible period of illness. She was famous for sending articles stuffed with recipes, news articles, home ideas, DIY, etc. The magazine was one of my husband subscribes to, but seldom reads. He's not that sort that would wind me up. He's an engineer, just the facts kind of guy. All I can say is mother helped out on more than one time. My husband has extremely poor eyesight and is therefore extremely careful that he puts down his glasses just on his bedside table. One morning, they weren't there when he reached for them. They had fallen out of the air and struck the back of his hand. There's nothing, no shelf, no towering pile adjacent that they could have fallen from. My husband is very neat in a way that you would expect of a military engineer to be, very precise. There was nothing above his hand but air. Then the glasses fell from nowhere and struck the back of his hand. still groping for them. Did I mention that Mother was a monkey? She would have thought it was hysterical to prank him. I loved Mother. She was my best friend. But honestly, it skeeves me out to think of her hanging out in my bedroom. Anyway, congratulations on all the positive that's happened in your lives. I believe your mother knows and is very happy for you. Sorry about my punctuation. I banged this out on my phone, and perfection in text is tough. And that comes from Susie J. Well, thank you very much, Susie J. And thank you all the listeners who have sent in your stories. Remember to call us now and leave your paranormal encounter at 651-300-4977. You can record up to a 3-minute message and story to us at 651-300-4977, and we will incorporate that into an upcoming episode. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Beyond the Darkness, plus Theater of the Mind. And remember, Tuesday, to check out the best in true crime talk radio. We need to get those numbers up, folks. We need you to help support us to keep this show moving. And this is how you can do it. Go subscribe right now to True Crime Tuesday. And you can do that by going to darknessradio.com and click on the True Crime Tuesday banner to subscribe. Or just go to patreon.com/True Crime Tuesday. If you're having any problems locating these, just email me, dave@darknessradio.com, and I'll send you the link. But if you subscribe, you get 4 brand new, anywhere from 90 minutes to 120-minute episode of the best of True Crime Talk Radio, plus some dumb crimes and stupid criminals. We have a great time putting the show together. It's available every Tuesday, and you can listen to it anytime once you're a subscriber. Plus, you get access now, going back almost a year and a half in the archives, almost 2 years, Tim?
A year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, that's almost 2 years. I like to think positive, Tim. My glass is half filled. So check it out. You get all those episodes, and it's only $4.99 a month to subscribe to our True Crime Tuesday podcast. And again, all of that goes to help us in continuing to bring this show to you as well. That's it for this week, or for today, I should say. We'll be back again tomorrow with more of the best in paranormal talk radio. For Tim Dennis, I'm Dave Schrader, and this is Beyond the Darkness.